In today's video, I am going to talk about an aspect of narcissistic relationships that's really important to understand, but can hide in plain sight while we are in the relationship. And that is that narcissists don't respect your basic rights as a human being. This can be such a foreign concept to us that even when we can see this for ourselves in the way the narcissist behaves, we might still not really be able to see or understand it. And until we can understand this, we can waste an enormous amount of time and energy trying to appeal to the values of a narcissist that they don't have. Welcome to Looking Behind the Mirror, where we explore narcissism and take our lives back as we make sense out of nonsense. As a quick disclaimer, everything I say is based on my opinions and my personal experiences. I'm not a professional, and if you're really struggling, I encourage you to seek professional help. I am providing links below for you. So let's start this video by talking about what most, quote, normal people understand about basic human rights. Most of us don't even really have to think about this. It's just part of how we think. It's part of how we operate in society. By the time we are adults, we have come to understand that we are not the only person in the world, that every other person around us is having their own experience, their own life, and their lives are just as important as ours. And even though most of us would consider our own life the most important life in our life, we understand that everybody else has a similar perspective, that everybody else is considering their life as the most important experience, the most important life that they're experiencing. Narcissists don't understand this, though. They have a very childish view of the world around them, in the sense that they really don't understand or grasp the concept that they are one person in a world of billions of people, and that every life is just as relevant and just as important as their own. They really feel like a little child in this sense, that they are the only real person that exists. And not just that they're the most important person, but the only important person. And this leads to their inability to recognize or care about the rights of other people. For most of them, this is something they don't even think about. They don't even think about the basic rights of other people because they're just completely consumed with their own perspective. They don't even think about the existence of somebody else's perspective. So when your perspective is the only perspective that you can even understand, how could you ever really stop to consider the rights of other people? Now, to give you a simple example of what I'm talking about, I'll bring up the example of how in most cultures that I'm aware of anyway, we wait in line for things. We build queues for things because it's a fair way to wait for our turn to ride on a ride at an amusement park, or pay for our groceries, or buy tickets to something, or whatever. We line up, we wait in line. Now, most of us don't like waiting in line, right? We wish that we could just go to the front of the line, but we recognize that the first person that arrives somewhere to wait for something should be the first person that receives whatever that thing is that we're all waiting for, right? We know that if we were the first one there, we would want to be first served. So we recognize that it's not fair to butt in front of somebody in line, because we wouldn't want somebody butting in line in front of us. Narcissists don't think this way. A narcissist will wait in line, but only because they have to. Only because if they butted in line, they know that they may be refused service, they might be yelled at, they might be forced out of the line. And this is really the only reason that they cooperate with this. And some of you who have known narcissists have probably noticed that for a lot of them, they really, really hate waiting in line, because waiting in line is kind of a way that they are forced to be treated as just another person with no special privileges. So some of them are okay waiting in line, but I think a disproportional amount of them really, really hate waiting in line. And I actually was involved with a very narcissistic person that would actually butt in line when I was with him. This happened quite often, where if there was a long line for something that we wanted to, buy tickets to or something like that, if there was a long line somewhere, he would actually go up towards the front of the line, and then he would just stand next to somebody who was already in line. And then as the line moved forward, he would just kind of blend into the line, just kind of butt in front of the person that's behind the person he was standing next to. And I used to really, really hate this because I would have two choices. I could either stand with him and butt in line with him and feel really embarrassed knowing that everyone behind us is probably really angry at us, and that made me really uncomfortable. Or I could refuse to do this with him and spend the next 3 or 4 days being punished with the silent treatment or with endless criticism and shame of how I don't support him or I'm too uptight or whatever. So this was a no-win situation for me. But the only way I knew how to handle it was to try to appeal to the values that I assumed he had, that he did not have. So I would either sit there until I was blue in the face trying to explain to him how uncomfortable this made me, how embarrassed I felt, how much I did not like it, or trying to explain to him until I'm blue in the face how unfair it is to the people behind him. But in his mind, if nobody said anything to him, they deserve to be butted in front of. And I should add that he was a pretty big, intimidating looking guy. And when he did this, at least every time he did this when I was there, nobody ever said anything. He got away with this every time. I don't know if he just was good at picking out the person that wouldn't have the nerve to say anything, or if it was because he was an intimidating looking person, or a combination. I don't know. But my point is, he had no sense of reciprocity, no sense of fairness, no sense of the basic rights of other people, that if this person was there before him, it's just within that person's right to be able to stay in their place in line without having to fight for it. He felt like if he butted in front of them, they deserved it if they didn't have the nerve to fight for that spot by saying something to him. So they didn't have an inherent right to just maintain their place in line. If they weren't willing to fight for it and create an awkward situation for themselves, then he had every right to butt in front of them. And at the same time, he couldn't care less about how this made me feel. I had no right to feel comfortable and safe in public if it interfered with what he felt like he wanted to do. And here I am assuming that he would care about these two things because they are such basic principles that it would never even occur to me, oh, maybe he doesn't care about basic rights of others. Maybe he doesn't care about basic respect, even though his actions are clearly showing that to me. So if you are with a narcissistic person and they are treating you or other people with complete indifference when it comes to basic rights that you should be able to rely on, believe that that is a reflection of how they feel. They are not recognizing or respecting the basic rights of other people, and it's probably because they don't recognize or care about those rights. And so no matter how much time I wasted trying to explain that I wasn't comfortable with this and that it was rude to other people, I was explaining something to him that he already knew. But I was overlooking the fact that he obviously didn't care. So when it comes to narcissists being compelled to respect the rights of other people, this inherent feeling of fairness and the rights of others and just doing the right thing is just not something that influences them. It's not something that affects their choices. Real consequences would really be the only thing that affects them. If every time this person I'm talking about, if every time they butted in line, somebody said something to them or they got kicked out of the venue or whatever, then they would probably stop doing it. Not because they care about how other people are going to feel, but because they know that they can't get away with doing this. And this is probably why this person didn't butt in line everywhere he went, because he probably knew where he could get away with it and where he couldn't. And it wasn't because he didn't feel any kind of respect for anyone's rights. It was because he knew that there were certain places where consequences would be imposed on him if he tried to do this. So I want to go over several examples of specific things that narcissists don't feel like you have a right to, And before I do that, I want to talk about quickly a narcissist's sense of right and wrong, because we often say that narcissists know right from wrong, and they do. Narcissists know the difference between right and wrong. They know when they're doing something wrong, like this person I'm talking about. He knew that butting in line was wrong, but he chose to do it anyway because he didn't feel like it was wrong. And I know it might seem like I'm splitting hairs here, but this is really an important part of narcissism. He really felt like the rules shouldn't apply to him. Now, he knew that butting in line was against the rules, and he knew it was wrong. And he knew that it would offend people, and he knew that it made me uncomfortable. But at the same time, he felt like he shouldn't have to wait in line, not him. The rules shouldn't apply to him. He shouldn't have to give up time because of other people that don't matter when he's the only person that really matters. He shouldn't have to wait longer than he wants to if doing so would make me more comfortable, because who cares if I'm comfortable or not? This is what he wants. And so he feels like this is what he has a right to do. And anybody that tries to take this right away from him deserves to be disrespected or embarrassed or whatever. You could apply this to something a little more black and white, like if a narcissist cheats on somebody. A narcissist knows that cheating is wrong. I mean, just see what happens when somebody cheats on a narcissist. They understand 100% that it's wrong in that case. And same with this person I've been talking about. If somebody butted in line in front of him, I'm sure he would understand 100% that that's absolutely not okay, right? But like a narcissist who cheats, somehow they're going to twist it around in their head to say, yeah, I know it's wrong, but I feel like the rules don't apply to me. I feel like I'm really in love with this other person, or I feel like my partner doesn't treat me right. They don't pay enough attention to me anyway, and they got mad at me the other day for this thing. So it's okay if I cheat because whatever reason they can come up with. They don't feel like they're doing anything wrong, even though they know they are. They know that other people would view what they're doing as wrong. They know that other people wouldn't understand the exceptions that they feel apply to them. So in this same vein, they understand that other people have rights, but they don't feel like other people should have rights. And they don't feel like those rights should infringe on what they want in any way. And a narcissist's feelings are their reality. Facts and objective reality to a narcissist are really just nuisances that get in the way of how things ought to be, of how they feel things should be. Their world is like a fantasy world that's made up of their feelings. And so they understand reality, but they don't care about reality. Okay, so some basic human rights that most of us should be entitled to that narcissists don't recognize. The first one is your right to be heard. When you share your life with somebody in some way, you should have a right to be heard. If something is bothering you, or if you have a certain preference for something, if you would like to do things this way or that way, or you have an opinion, you have a reasonable right to be heard. And a narcissist understands this when it goes their way. Narcissists certainly feel like you owe it to them to listen to every single word they have to say, even if they talk to you for 4 hours about something you couldn't care less about, right? But when you try to express your feelings, your preferences, or even try to tell them what you would like to do tomorrow, or plans you'd like to make next year, or furniture you'd like to buy, or whatever, if they don't feel like listening to you, they absolutely do not recognize your right to be heard. And if you're saying something that they don't like you're trying to point out a way you feel because of something they've done, they will tell you why you're wrong. They will tell you why you shouldn't be saying what you're saying, or they'll just completely ignore you. So when you feel like you have something to say and you should have a basic right of being heard by the people that you share your life with, it can be really confusing when the narcissist won't listen to you, because you can be going into it with the assumption that of course they know that you have a right to be heard. And this is so obvious to you that you might not even consciously think about it. So when the narcissist ignores you, invalidates you, or just basically won't listen to you, instead of recognizing that it's because they don't care and because they disrespect your right to be heard, you can spend an enormous amount of time trying to explain to them over and over again how you feel, or why you feel that way, thinking that if they could just understand what you're saying, surely they would care, right? When in reality, they just honestly don't care how you feel and they don't want to listen to anything you have to say unless they like what you're saying. Another basic human right that narcissists don't recognize is your right to make your own decisions, like deciding what you want to eat or what you want to wear, or maybe deciding when you would like to watch TV or what you want to watch on TV, or if you want to cook something, or if you want to run to the store, or bigger things like if you want to have kids or don't want to have kids, or if you want to go back to school, or if you want to quit your job, get a different job, these decisions that you should have a right to make. I mean, when we're in a partnership with somebody, of course, sometimes we can influence each other's decisions for the good of the relationship, right? But narcissists don't recognize your right to make decisions at all. Narcissists feel like whatever they feel ought to happen. And if your decisions interfere with that in any way, you're wrong, because you don't have a basic right to make your own decisions. If they don't like the way that you fold socks, all they can see is how annoying it is to them. And that proves to them how wrong you are for folding the socks that way. There's no thought in their head of the idea that maybe you should have the right and the autonomy to decide how you would like to fold socks. Or maybe you prefer to fold socks this way, they prefer to fold socks that way, and these are both completely relevant preferences. They don't have any thought of that because they're the only person that matters in the whole world. So the way they feel about how you fold socks is the only thing that matters. And your right to make your own decisions and your right to be autonomous doesn't even exist, especially if what you're doing bugs them or interferes with the way they want things to be. Another basic right that narcissists will not respect is your right to say no to things. This could just be saying no to, maybe you don't feel like going out to dinner and they want to go out to dinner, or maybe they want you to drive them somewhere, or maybe they want you to pay for something for them or go pick something up, or maybe they want you to call somebody and have some really uncomfortable conversation that's going to benefit them, or maybe they want you to find them a job or whatever. When you say no to them, no matter how unfair their request is, they don't feel like you have a right to do that, because why would you? Why would you have a right to say no to anything they've asked you to do? Your right to say no to people is a reflection of your autonomy, and your ability to recognize somebody else's right to say no is a reflection of your understanding of that person's autonomy. The understanding that you're two separate people and that you have a right to make your own decisions is directly connected to the fact that each one of you has a right to say no to the other. So for a narcissist, because they don't recognize your autonomy, because they feel like you exist solely for them, because of them, to serve them, that's the only reason you even exist, why would you have a right to say no to something they want you to do? That's the only reason you even exist. What is the point of you even being around for them if you're going to tell them no? They don't respect your rights and they don't respect your existence. And I think this is why if you spend too much time with narcissists or in narcissistic relationships, you can start to be conditioned over time to feel like you have to justify your no. When you tell somebody no, you've got to come up with excuses for it. You've got to back it up. You've got to argue. You've got to fight for it, because just like that person waiting in line that gets butted in front of, if they're not willing to fight for something that they should just have a basic right to do, if they're not willing to fight for it, in the narcissist's mind, they don't deserve that right, because it's not just a basic right to be able to keep your place in line or to say no to something you don't want to do. So side note here, when you're in healthy relationships with people that actually care about you, you have a right to say no to things without causing a huge uproar, without destroying the relationship, and without having to explain yourself and justify and back up your no. People that care about you and respect you and recognize your right to say no will just accept your answer as no, because they respect your basic human rights. Another basic right that narcissists don't respect is your right to feel safe, especially to feel safe in your own home or maybe your own workplace. They do not care about this. And in their mind, if you've done something to make them angry, which is happening in their imagination because most of the time they are already angry and they are pretending that it's because of the way you fold socks. So in their imagination, they are fuming angry and it's because of the way you fold socks. Therefore, you deserve to be raged at and you don't deserve to feel safe in your own home because if you did, you wouldn't have made them so mad to begin with. And so if you're going through a particularly difficult time living with somebody that makes you feel unsafe, you might think that if you could explain this to them, if they could understand that you don't feel safe in your own home, surely they would let off a little bit. Surely they would be a little nicer if they understood how scared you feel, because surely they would understand that you have a right to feel safe in your own home, that you shouldn't have to take a nap with pepper spray under your pillow because you're so scared of this person you live with, right? But narcissists don't care about that. And like I just said, they feel like if they're angry enough to make you feel unsafe, they've already convinced themselves that you deserve that. And if you didn't want to feel unsafe, you shouldn't have made them so angry. When in reality, you probably didn't do anything to make them that angry. Another basic right that narcissists don't recognize is your right to the truth. Narcissists don't feel like it's any of your business what they're actually doing, what's actually going on. They feel like they have a right to lie to you if they want to, if it benefits them, because they're the only person that matters. And so if they tell you the truth, if they confess to something they've done, something they've betrayed you with, if this is a true narcissist, they are not doing it because they feel like they owe it to you somehow. They're doing it to manipulate you or to try to get their way somehow. They're doing it for their own benefit because narcissists do not feel like they owe anyone the truth. They feel like everybody owes them the truth. You know, if you try lying to them, you'll see how well they understand this concept. But they just feel like the rules don't apply to them. They're the only one that matters. And if they have to lie to get what they want, they feel like that's okay. And so when you are tired of them lying to you and you are spending days, weeks, months, years trying to explain to them that you need them to tell you the truth, you're appealing to values they don't have. They will never care about your right to know the truth about what they're doing. They just do not feel that they owe that to you, and they never will. They don't recognize your right to make mistakes. Many of us have learned this the hard way. Narcissists are actually often looking for any tiny mistake that we make to pretend that that mistake or that flaw is the reason that they are so angry, so that they can connect their anger to you, blame it on you, and justify all the ways that they disrespect your basic human rights. When in reality, when we're in a healthy relationship with someone that cares about us, nobody expects us to be perfect. Nobody is going to punish us endlessly for saying the wrong thing the wrong way, or folding the socks the wrong way, or tracking dirt in the house. These little things in a normal relationship that might be a little annoying might be something that we talk about. In a narcissistic relationship, it's like you've committed an unforgivable crime because you do not have a right to make any mistakes. You do not have a right to be accepted and loved as a human being if you aren't perfect. And you also don't have the right to rest when you're in a narcissistic relationship. You don't have a right to just sit back and take it easy and watch TV unless you're doing something that's benefiting the narcissist. If you're just sitting there enjoying yourself, reading a book, working on a hobby or whatever, all the narcissist sees is wasted resources. Somebody that's wasting time and energy on themselves that they could be spending doing something to benefit the narcissist, because again, that's the only reason that you even exist. So narcissists don't recognize your right to take time out for yourself, because that's time you could be spending on them. And this is why when you're in a narcissistic relationship, there might be this constant feeling of guilt or fear tugging at you anytime you sit down and just take some time out to yourself, because that narcissist is judging you. And that feeling of discomfort can follow you your whole life into everything you do. It can follow you into healthy relationships where you never feel comfortable taking time for yourself. You feel like you've always got to be doing something for other people because you don't have this basic human right to be able to sit down and take time out for yourself from time to time. So the main thing I want to achieve with this video is to give you some things to think about if you are in a narcissistic relationship, to realize that you do have the right to make mistakes. You do have the right to fold the socks how you want to fold them, that you aren't committing a crime when you sit down and take a break or work on your own hobby, that you're not doing something wrong when you're making your own decisions for yourself, when you're deciding whether or not you want to find a different job, or whether or not you want to go to this grocery store versus that grocery store, or what brand of laundry detergent you want to use. You have a right to be heard if your partner or your friend or whoever this person is doing something that's making you uncomfortable. Somebody that cares about you should be willing to listen to you and be influenced by that. So the bottom line is, if you're with somebody that seems to constantly be overriding your basic rights, won't listen to you, won't consider how you feel, won't consider what is fair, what is truly fair for both of you, it's not because they're confused. It's not because they don't understand that they're hurting you. It's not because they don't understand that you don't feel safe or you don't feel like your feelings matter or any of that. They understand the reality of right and wrong. They understand that what they're doing is wrong and unfair, but they don't care because they feel like the rules don't apply to them. So my hope is, if you are stuck in this kind of situation, that you will stop wasting time trying to explain things to somebody who already understands it all, and you will start to see the reality that this person simply does not respect your basic human rights. And what you do based on that information is up to you, but I think we can make better decisions in our lives when we understand the reality that we're living in. I hope this helps. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up and comment below any ideas you have for me for future videos. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you like this video and would like to see more like it in the future. Until next time, thanks. Bye.